9 hours later, it was dawn over the Golden Dome. That was the absorber of life forces. On Mutania, Newton and crew were preparing for their attack. All over the planet, the repeated message was seen and heard on every radio and TV that those in the area of the absorber had better flee out of the danger because although Mutania was going to destroy it, to set them free, they didn't know what would happen when it was destroyed. Discouragement was seen in Newton's eyes when he saw floods of Patanars coming to the absorber, doing the opposite of what he wanted. They believed that if they died at the absorber, they'd go straight to Ramadars. With that, Newton tried to tell them to at least wait a few days and ask themselves why Bob, if he really was so powerful, would allow his feeding source to not only be destroyed, but desecrated. Still, though, they continued to flood in and circle the absorber. In his throne, Newton looked at Flew and said, "No doubt the Holy Helpers are also telling Bob his house is about to be blasted." Newton then said, "How much you want to bet that there really aren't that many true Holy Helpers down there? You said there were thousands of those things down there, like the one that I fought? I doubt it. Probably more like a handful. The one who didn't melt into the ground, and the ones who ran off, and the ones that supposedly looked like regular Patanars to spy and inform were, no doubt, just sellouts. Yeah, the one that didn't melt into the ground, and the ones who ran off, and the ones that supposedly looked like regular Patanars and to spy and inform were, no doubt, just sellouts from Patanar, who fell for the afterlife lies of Ramadars. But it doesn't matter if there are millions of those things down there, like the one I fought. I'm certain that they only exist because the Golden Dome exists. We take that out, they cease to exist. We bury the remains of the Golden Dome in the bunch of unholy Kumba wax, and then the faith in the religion of Ramadars crumbles. How can it not? But Gad, look at the poor fools coming. Well, hopefully, there is no explosion. Hopefully, the might of our phaser just taxes the life out of Bob, and he dies in trying to keep the shielding on. Hopefully. He looked at his crew and said, you know something? Although incredibly oppressive this thing is, they will still face the absorber. Probably all of them. I said we begin our attack before it starts absorbing their energy. Sure, it taxes its energy to feed off of theirs. It taxes its energy to feed off of theirs, but I bet that if we attack now, maybe we'll be able to weaken it enough to get through and destroy that structure now. Newton looked over at Obakoba and said, "Obakoba, phaser's ready?" "Phaser's ready," replied Obakoba, who would be doing the attacking. "Fire!" shouted Newton. And one strong red beam of energy shot down from the sky and landed on the absorber's force field, shaking and thundering the area all around it, causing the people in the area to scream and dart about. Only the most faithful continued to circle as close as the force field would permit. The structure was the only thing located in the desert with them. Although the force field was transparent, it started clouding up a little near the top. Suddenly, a big area of land began to indent, while another area began to rise. Within a minute, Bob, standing 1,000 feet high, roared its Godzilla-like roar with fury. Giant, jagged boulders dotted the deserts. The 100-foot-tall Golden Dome was out among. Bob yanked up one of the jagged boulders and threw it in the direction of where the beam was shooting down from. Newton laughed when he saw Bob on the viewing screen do such a thing. Newton laughed again when Bob picked up and hurled another at the sky. How close to the absorber does Bob think we are? How close to the absorber does Bob think we are? Wondered Callisto. We are above him as one stands above an ant, snapping its jaws in vain, smiled Newton. You don't think it actually believes its lies about the sky being a well-guarded canopy, do you? Bob tore up another mountain-sized boulder and threw it at the sky, making Newton laugh again and saying, "How nimrodic." Suddenly, when they saw Bob tear up and throw another mountain-sized boulder and throw it at the sky, Mutania shook violently. "What the hell?" shouted Newton. "Did he actually reach us?" Mutania shook violently again. One of Newton's crew shouted out, "Newton, we're being attacked!" "Put on shields," shouted Newton. It turned out that the Federation starship, with the robot captain, was attacking Mutania again. "Divert power to the shields," shouted Newton, and with that, the attack on the absorber of life ended. On the planet, the people were facing it again. What damage to its force field Mutania had brought it was quickly fading back to normal. "We're getting a call from the robot captain," said Sheena. "Put it on visual," demanded Newton. When the face of the robot captain came on, he was begging Newton to stop any further attacks on the Golden Dome of Ramada and turn himself in to Federation authorities. It turned out that the Federation was quite familiar with the reality of the oppressive life absorber, but that the planet Ramada, as far as they knew, was only oppressive to the Patamars and not any other inhabitants. "But it's evil," Newton countered with. The robot captain laughed Newton to scorn and shouted back there were no moral absolutes, and that Newton was the one infringing on the rights of Rama to feed on the Patamars. The robot captain asked Newton if he hadn't tried to talk and negotiate with Bob first, to see if he could get Bob and the Patamars to work out a deal where the two could live more comfortably together, where instead of absorbing the Patamars' energy twice a day, that maybe they could get it down to one. Besides, argued the robot captain, Newton was still properation of the Federation, and because of that, he needed clearance and authorization before ever thinking of using any kind of weapon. As the robot captain went on and on, sounding like an escapee from a UN debate team, the Mutania crew noticed it was now surrounded by most of the ships it fought with before they entered the planet's orbit. Newton looked at the robot captain on his moon screen and said, "Blast your Federation red tape. Mutania will free those people down there from that satanic god." "Thou shalt not," shouted the robot captain. Newton, remembering that the robot said it was programmed to counter all Newton's desires, responded with, Just don't attack Mutania with your phasers, okay?" Yeah, excuse me. I read that wrong. Newton, remembering that the robot said it was programmed to counter all of his desires, responded with, "Just don't attack Mutania with your phasers, okay?" As the robot captain commanded all to use phasers, Newton quickly pressed some buttons dealing with Mutania's shield system. Newton got the news from his crew that in order to be more successful in their attack, they'd have to get far closer to the absorber. "How much closer?" asked Newton with a look of fear in his eyes. "A mile at least," said Callisto. With that, Newton had Mutania taken down out of the planet's orbit and into its atmosphere. On the planet, Bob, who had his butt up in the air, in prostration to the energy absorption that was doing the opposite with him, heard a roar in the sky. The bluish beam from the absorber shut off. Bob looked up and saw Mutania approaching down through some scattered thin clouds. With that, fury entered the eyes of Bob again. Bob, like a giant ape, beat his chest a bit, then looked for another mountain to send at Mutania. "Fire!" shouted Newton. The powerful red-colored energy beam lanced out and struck the force field of the Golden Dome absorber again. With it, a cry from the robot captain filled the bridge of Mutania, being that his voice was still being broadcast through Mutania's audio receiver. He yelled out, "No, please, stop! Stop, I say! I command thee!" And a powerful phaser beam shot out all of the ships, out of all the ships, and struck Mutania, shaking the crew about violently. But the red energy beam of Mutania continued to bear down on the Golden Dome.